Hey there.
Hi, John.
Hi there, Georgia.
Is that Portugal behind you?
Yes, that's the one of the banks of the Douro River. Some
Mm,
picture I took a day or two ago. So yeah,
I've looked
I'm
at that Douro River trip multiple times. It's very appealing looking.
yep. It's been pretty relaxing mostly. The
Good.
the river part. We were in Lisbon a few days beforehand. Then we were on a pre-trip around Lisbon and the bussed up to Porto, and we got on the river yesterday, day before yesterday.
Okay.
So yeah, let's see. There's somebody who wants to come in.
It should be
So, let me
Barbara.
make you. Let me just make sure I can make you co-host. I can make you host. There. I make Georgia the co-host. Yes.
Mhm. It's pretty
Right.
early.
Yeah, it's pretty early for. That's probably Bob or Peggy.
Oh, I was really expecting Barbara.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So how are things in Washington Grove?
Pretty good. I was sorry to hear that Bob is still on the intravenous antibiotics, which Ernie and I don't love the sound of, but apparently the oral antibiotics they were giving him, he'd been through two courses and they decided it just wasn't working. So,
Wow, I didn't know anything about that. What are they? What are they treating him for?
well, I haven't talked to Bob. I talked to Peggy. And she said it started several months ago when they thought he had food poisoning. And he was really sick for a couple of weeks. I do remember that. And they thought that they had knocked it down, but then things got weird, and they decided that he had some sort of multiple drug resistant infection, and they were having trouble with like a lot of other blood parameters. So
And this, he wasn't in a hospital, or how could he get a multiple drug resistant? That's surprising.
that, yeah, that seems really strange. I I don't feel as though um I don't feel as though I have a really clear picture of exactly what happened. And part of it, I think, is because Peggy's not that conversant with the medical terminology.
Right.
So one of these, I'm going to have to gird my loins and ask Bob and see if
Oh,
he understands it better. But he
okay.
looks really tired in meetings. So Ernie and I were worried about him.
Right. Well, if he if he's suffering an infection, he's gonna look tired, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Peggy says he's definitely better by like this past weekend.
okay. So maybe the infection has finally been taken care of. I don't know.
I'm hoping. Yeah.
So good. So, okay. Well, Barbara will be around. I see Kathy is waiting and Peggy or
Yeah.
Bob might be. Has the temperature been okay?
It's actually been really nice.
Ah,
It,
good.
it's varying between fairly cool and just pleasant.
Great.
So it's actually been perfect.
Ah, well, the weather here on the river has been very, very nice. It's sunny. There's virtually no clouds in the sky. Just no wind. I mean, it's
Wow, that
pretty
sounds like a
ideal.
perfect time to be on a river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been amazing as far as that goes. So yeah, it's interesting. Very easy to. There's an alarm. I gotta get rid of that. Mhm. Okay, that's gone.
We liked Lisbon a lot when we were there, and there's that Sintra. Sintra near Lisbon is charming as well.
Yeah, maybe I should make a background of Sintra. Let me see. Do I have? I may have.
Oh, that would be fun.
That would be cool if I have one of my pictures on this on my iPad. I take them elsewhere. Let's see. Oh, if I can see if I can get. Of course not. Okay, if I ever said I'd have one. Yeah,
There's Barbara.
it's going to be too big. Maybe this is the one.
Oh, yes, that's perfect, John. Love it.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Jeff. Well, you don't let any stone go unturned. Everything is all organized for the meeting, and
I hope so. I'm sure you can handle it without all my fussing, but
yeah.
yeah, that's about it.
Let me ask you though, if you're going to be on, shouldn't you be running it since you are the mayor?
The only concern is it's hard to look at multiple documents on my iPad. I don't have a laptop here.
Uh-huh.
So since we plan on you doing it, why don't you just go ahead if you don't mind?
Okay, no, I don't mind at all, but yeah, so, but like your status is, what's your status gonna be then, is not really,
I'll just be observing.
okay,
I'll comment, but I certainly
you'll
won't,
comment for sure.
but only on the material, so.
Yeah, well, I'm reviewing all that stormwater management stuff and
Good
I don't
luck.
know,
There's a lot of it.
I know.
Right.
And nobody wants to make a decision.
Well,
You-
that's the thing. And so I may have to contribute there because I've repeatedly tried to explain that, look, our priority is we need to spend our ARPA money.
Right,
So we're going to contract for at least that amount. We'll probably contract for more than that, probably almost everything we have from the state bond as well, but we don't have to. We need to do a contract for the actual work, which is a combination of design and build. So the challenge is to pick one of the vendors and then kind of negotiate with them before signing the contract
right,
as to get the maximum for our money.
right,
We also want some money left over for somebody, which I think should be Soltes
right,
Jason, to oversee the thing. You've heard all this.
right.
So, it's completely a matter of just deciding who we're going to try and give us a balance of design and construction.
Right. But so the question that I have as I was going through this is, if we're going to just negotiate this after we pick the vendor anyway, like we could just flip a coin, right? If they're both competent to do the work, and if like they're saying, oh, well, biohabitats is over engineered, well, we could say, well, don't engineer it so much, do something simpler and it'll be cheaper. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I agree with you. It does sound like we could do either one that way.
uh-huh.
I'm going to admit to having had my ear thoroughly bent by Steve Wertz.
Okay.
I have not looked at all of the stormwater management documentation, but has there been any consideration of using less bioswales and more of a sort of a staircase method to slow the water down and direct it toward bioswales, but less of them?
Yeah, that's part of the thing, Georgette. You're right. Is how many bioswales do we want to put bioswales everywhere where we initially requested them? Probably not, in retrospect. But that's the kind of thing that we need to negotiate with one of you about. they'll do what we want. They're both capable of doing it either way. And you know, Bob would like to see a calculation as to what
Right.
what the result would be of either one. And you know, I think that's a good idea. That of course will have a cost, but not that big, I don't think. So whether we can decide based on, you know, how much of that we can get versus how much actual installation. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to figure, but it looks like, I mean, according to SMI, they could do roughly within the budget. I mean, depending on very much on specifics, they could do that gravel wetlands down at the end of Center, which would have the biggest effect on the woods, probably, but the least effect on the residential area. We would be collecting the water down there better. But go ahead. You want to let everybody in and take over?
I'll start bringing people in.
Okay.
Hello.
Beautiful background. Where is that, John?
Uh, that's a photograph of a palace, I guess, by Sintra, Portugal. That's outside of Lisbon, probably like 30 miles on a mountain, very much on the mountain, built by the king. Actually, was the king consort at the time. It's kind of a wild palace, very ornate, as you can see. There's a lot more to it than what you're seeing, but yeah, it was. We were there on a beautiful day, obviously. So
Yeah, it's beautiful.
yeah, I'm actually on the Douro River, right at the border between Portugal and Spain, where the climate's somewhat drier, a lot of vineyards and olive trees and almond trees on the slopes, but definitely the climate is an inland climate's pretty amazing. And we're down in this valley, and this internet connection is remarkably good for, you know, it's not a highly populated area, to say the least.
Is it hot there or still very warm?
No, well, yeah, it was very warm. It got to 82 degrees today. I think it's high 50s right now.
Oh, okay.
No, the weather here in Portugal this time of year, at least as advertised, is pretty much ideal.
Yeah, that's great. It's a beautiful day today here.
Yeah, so I understand. That's, you know, you hate to go out of town when the weather's nice, but hey, for you guys.
So, John, this is Chris. You probably maybe mentioned this when, you know, I logged in late, but it's 12:30 in the morning there. Is that right?
It is. Yeah, we're 5 hours ahead.
Wow.
Oh,
Don't
my.
worry. I probably wouldn't be asleep anyway, even if I was home, so. But-
John, we will not be worrying. Don't worry
I'm glad. I knew you wouldn't be.
about that.
Don't you have to play Ken tomorrow morning?
We're waiting. We expected you to be coming back for tomorrow, 6
Yeah.
o'clock. How long is the flight to get here?
Can you
Barbara, you
entertain us with
ready?
some
Be-
slides from Portugal
Oh.
while we're waiting?
To keep
Barbara-
changing my background. I could show photos. They're not very well edited or anything. So, as most of you know, you have to take 10 pictures to get a good one.
The advantage of all of our smartphones is you can take 1,000 of them
Exactly.
and then pick the one you like, right?
Right.
Compared to all the 35 millimeter film that we
Yeah. Instead of wasting.
wasted.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
All right, Barbara, it's 7:30.
Okay, I'm ready to go. And I see all the town
John.
councilors are here.
Yeah.
So I think we can get started. Thanks for keeping us on track, Peter. So we will open the meeting with the call to order tonight. I'm the mayor pro tem, as you may or may not know. And you may see the mayor here as well, who says he's not going to participate, but I have my doubts. We'll see. But I know he'll contribute a lot, but I'm running the meeting in any case. So the first item of business is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second Eva.
Okay. Any changes, amendments, additions? Okay, all in favor? Okay, now this is a little tricky because I don't always see everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's 5. Okay, all in favor. Okay, great. 5-0. Great. Okay, public appearances. So we're going to ask for if people have a public appearance for an item that's not on the agenda. If the item is on the agenda, please hold your public appearance until that time comes. Anybody here for public appearance?
Barbara,
Kathy? Yes.
if we just did a vote, we only have 5 counselors there, or do we have 6?
Well, I'm not voting because
You're
I'm
not
running the
voting.
meeting.
Okay, that
Right.
makes sense. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, my first non-participation. You can you can vote.
Oh, I can vote? Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm the only one who can't vote. So
okay, but okay, it was 5-0. Let's leave it at that. 5-0.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So is there anyone here then for a public appearance for an item that is not on the agenda? Okay, there is not. So let's move on to the treasurer's report. I see that Jean is here.
I am.
And I will go to the Dropbox and pull up.
And I was looking at what I
reports.
submitted. I found a boo-boo, so I'll point that out. And I
Okay,
will get a fresh copy to Christine and the council folk to have a good copy.
all right, now I'm
Are
about
you
to
putting
share
it
it.
Yeah.
All right, so you should be seeing it now. Can you see it, everybody?
Yes.
Great. Okay, Jean, do you want to walk us through what we need to know?
Yeah. So in the income, there's $500. It's on the wrong line at the towards the bottom of income. I accidentally put it on the line for use of reserves. It belongs in miscellaneous revenues. So I'll make
Oh,
that
this
adjustment
is
and
it.
get
This
it to
is
the
500
public.
here.
Yes, that
Okay.
500. I will make the adjustment, get clean copies out.
Okay.
And in donations, we didn't have a budget item for donations, and we've got you went past income. If you go back up there a bit, Terry Cox Fund. We've got, I've had 2 checks come for the Terry Cox Memorial. I was not able to make it. I was in California. I don't know exactly the check. One check said it was a memorial fund. I believe that might be for a tree or something. I'll have to ferret that out.
Okay.
But we do have 2 checks now. One was in August, one came in September. Now, if we go down to expenses, we're only 2 months in. There's really not much to talk about in the municipal buildings. If you continue scrolling it a little farther, yes. Bathroom supplies with Summer in the Parks. We go through a lot of paper towels. You might imagine you get that many kids in a bathroom. Hand soap and paper towels. So we're at 58% and we're 2 months in. So I'm thinking that will drop off as we go forward. I'll keep an eye on that. In the fire alarm, every 5 years, there's a fire extinguisher repairs and maintenance that happens. I've only been doing this job for 3 years. I didn't know about this 5-year item. So, we're ahead of budget on that item. My guess is we'll ultimately go over a little bit because of that, but it's not a huge amount of money. But just pointing that out. In road resurfacing on the next page, this year, the 33,262. We split the payment to Laney for the road surfacing, and a portion of it we were able to expense in fiscal 24, and the balance of it is in fiscal 25. So there should not be any more resurfacing. I don't know, the mayor might know if we're still doing some stop lines or some other small things, but we're done for this fiscal year for road resurfacing. We kind of killed 2 fiscal years with one big project. So I wanted to point that out. And that is the bulk of what I wanted to point out. I have a note down on the last page, our liability insurance, the rate increased. And it's not a huge problem, but we're going to talk with them. There's, if we re-edit or update the personnel policy, there were some items they like to see in that. It's not a safety issue like playground might be, but it was part of their review. And I am going to be doing an update of the personnel policy. Maybe next year that will bring that rate back down. The bank balances are at the bottom as usual. And I've noted how much of the ARPA funds remain. As long as we get that contracted by the end of the year, we're all good to go with the federal government on reporting on our use of the ARPA funds. And I did move in September to that 82,660. That was the check that went to Laney for the resurfacing. And it's being pulled out of MLGIP to cover the large check that's going to hit our checking account. So that is the sum total of all my comments.
Okay, does the town council have any questions or comments on the report?
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved, since nobody else is.
I'll second. I can't unmute fast.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right, I can't see everybody. All right. Rob, are you a yes, I assume, Rob? Because I can't see you. Okay.
Yeah.
So who's, I'm really, wait, let me stop sharing and then I can see who's here. Okay, this is better. Now vote. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure I'm documenting what's going on. Okay, so let's see. Let's get that out of the way.
You're gonna vote, you're gonna vote each time.
I'm really not going to vote because, yeah, I'm not. Normally, if you're running the meeting, you don't vote unless there's a tie. Okay, so on to the mayor's report. We have kudos. There was a very big event or lots of events in town over Labor Day. One of them was the new Terry Cox Fun Run, which I understand that Peter had a lot to do with. And there was a big whoop-de-whoop at the lake afterwards, which sounds really nice. And there are, of course, everything like this involves a lot of people chipping in and joining in. Some of the names that came up were Peggy Bohr, Sarah Perrant, Renee Malaznik, Arlene McCrean, Lisa Balin, Christina Cuff, and lots of other people. So thanks for everybody. I mean, that's such a long-standing tradition. It's such a nice thing for the town. So I'm glad to know that it went really well. We also had a new event just yesterday that Tom Land arranged. It was the contractors picnic. And I understand there are about 50 people there, and it was really nice. And it was postponed to take advantage of the better weather yesterday, which was really a beautiful day. So it was really good to hear that. And who knows, maybe that'll become a town tradition as well. I don't know. We'll see. And I just wanted to give another shout out. Like one of the other town councilors mentioned this, that we really just have to recognize everybody who contributes to the town, because especially when you're on the town council, you really see all that goes on behind the scenes that if you're just a regular resident, you don't see quite as much. And it really takes a lot of people to get things going, to get things done. A lot of really competent people who put in a lot of time. So thanks to everybody for that. Road work, we had the paver guys here a few weeks ago, and I understand they did a great job, and that we'll want to work with them in the future is the recommendation. And I understand that the project manager really responded to people about the parking and when they were going to be there and all those kinds of things. And so I'm really glad to know that that went really well. The shared use pathway, there is a report in the counselor reports, but basically the Department of Transportation is still waiting for permits for trees and environmental kinds of things. And it's been really quite a long time waiting. So, we may want to, Sydney Katz has really helped us with this a lot. So it may be a time to check in with them again and see if they can get things moving. Because when we talk to the person, the contact in the county, she knows what's going on and she's enthusiastic and it sounds like she's really working on things. But then when you see, well, where's the result? Where's the actual progress? It's really not what we would expect to see at this point. So we're still on top of that. We're still checking in, and maybe we'll invite Sydney Katz to help us again. We are going to have a State of the District event at McCatherine Hall on October 19th. Delegate Gabriel Acevero will be hosting a public event with the theme of environmental justice and to discuss our concerns, as residents. So I encourage you to come out to that and, meet and greet and let him know what you have to say about things and your opinions and all of that. We have our DEI training session on November 16th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. So please put that on your calendar. I hope that a lot of people in town will come. This is being led by Leadership Montgomery, which is a very strong nonprofit in the area who has a lot of expertise in this. So I think it's going to be a really good event. And just to refresh people's memory, the training is in 2 parts. The first part is for the entire town, or at least up to like 65 or 70 people. And then the second part will be for town leadership, like committee chairs and town councilors and people like that. So it's two parts that really are linked together and will result in a plan that, we hope will respond to the needs of the town. We also have parliamentary procedure training, which is going to be for the town councilor and other leadership like the commission chairs and committee chairs. And that's going to be on October 13th. The last thing I wanted to mention is speed bumps in town. We a little item of controversy. I know we really want to put them in the right places. Some people love them, some people hate them. Peter has kind of taken the lead on this and is talking to people. We haven't really made any specific recommendations for new speed bumps at this point. So if you have thoughts about where you think they should go, you should talk to Peter about that. So Peter, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it's not controversial, but everybody does have an opinion on this. So I'm waiting for John to get back before I burden him with this information and we can kind of strategize on it.
Okay. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the stormwater infrastructure maintenance contract award. And you may know that there's a committee headed by Patty Klein that has been working on this for many, many, many months and has interviewed two contractors. I mean, we said this committee developed the RFP, sent it out to the world. We had two pretty strong bids. This committee and the town council interviewed the bidders and asked a lot of questions, got a lot more information. And then the committee sort of compiled the information and I shared that with you, and I'll put it up on the screen too. And so now we're gonna open up a discussion about this. So I just went over very broadly. I don't know, Patty, do you want to jump in with more of the details about what has been done that people should know about? And then we can look at the material that you submitted for the council.
Oh, sure. No, that's fine. And I have the materials also sort of, minimized on my computer, but if you've got the same reports, whichever is easier to share screens, that's fine. I also have a copy of the map if everybody wants something to, visualize and reference. But before we get into the granularity, yeah, I mean, thank you, Barbara. I mean, first of all, it takes a village to do this, right? I mean, it's a lot bit of everybody, contributing their thoughts and perspectives. Obviously, in the early part is just trying to frame out what this request for proposals would look like and the section of town that we wanted to focus on. We were guided through some of that by some original reports by Soltez, the company that we actually had contracted with to do sort of a 10,000-foot view of kind of almost a roadmap of trying to give us some guidance on how to approach this whole project. Remember, a lot of the beginnings of this was really about the damage that's happening in the West Woods. Those of us, of course, on the Woods Committee were really concerned about watching the erosion, the soil erosion, even watching the lake fence line, chain link fence basically fall over on one edge and having to redo it over years. So we were watching all of this deterioration. It led us to talking with Soltez several years ago to look first at the West Woods. They gave us again, sort of an overview of all the bad things that are happening there, but we said we need to look upstream, literally upstream, to see where the source of some of the flooding and some of the volume of water was coming from. In the West Woods, just not to get too much on a tangent, but in the West Woods, the water that's flowing from the town across Washington Grove Lane and into the woods is only one aspect. The woods itself is also being inundated by water and volumes of water that are coming from Towncrest and other sources. But we had to focus initially on one aspect, which was coming from the residential part of town, but in doing so, that's also hopefully trying to solve some of the in-town problems that have been growing over the years. So fast forward, we focused on doing an RFP, a request for proposal, specifically looking at this western section of town from Grove Road or Grove Avenue all the way over to Washington Grove Lane, and looking at how the water is channeling, through that section of town, on the roads, on the avenues, sometimes sheeting across, residential properties, et cetera. And that was the RFP that we put out several months ago. And with, again, Jason Mills from Soltez, his good counsel, we walked through the town together, this sort of team or work group, to identify these key work areas. Again, we can't solve everything all at once, but we wanted to sort of take a bite out of the big problem. And we identified these sort of 9 key work areas in town. Some of them included culverts. Those are little pipes that go like, under a roadway that channel water from one end to the other. We also have what we call natural swales, or these sort of little, I wouldn't call them ditches, sort of earthen ditches. We have a couple of different sort of minimal infrastructure systems that are in town, minimum being the operative word, that have served us well for many years, but not so much anymore. And so looking at those particular areas, we built this request for proposal, and with some guidance from Jason to suggest that we do what's called a design build. And forgive me, don't let me wax too much into the sort of abstract, but the design build is sort of a most efficient way, if I can express it that way. Instead of going out and doing an engineering study first, to hire a set of engineers to come in and basically look at all the math, all the calculations, all the flow rates, and we need that. But instead of doing that as a separate study, which again, we also have a timeline that is ticking for us based on some of the federal money that we received, that we need to obligate that by December 31st of this year. So if we tried to do an engineering study, in part, we felt that we would lose some time in getting that study done first, and then having to go back out again with another RFP to do the construction. So some of these things are, I wouldn't say limitations, but they're the scenarios or the circumstances about which we're trying to be most efficient and most productive and have the best outcome for the investment, of trying to do a combined design build, which now we've realized with some of the bidders that we've tried to review, also has some challenges to it, because we don't have the design done yet, granted, but that's part of what we're trying to review in the bids that came in, is their vision, these contractors' visions of what they would consider the proper design or an appropriate design to achieve the goals that we set forth in the RFP. So I'll stop there. Does that work so far for everybody?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and I'm checking to see if Jason made it on yet. Yeah, Jason, I think you're here. I see
Yep,
your.
I'm here.
Okay, perfect.
good.
So did I say anything that you need to add to?
No, I think that was a good description to start with, and then I'll be here to answer any questions that anybody has, and we can go over everything.
Thank you, appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know, this is Jason Mills from Soltez, who again had done some of those earlier reports to give us some initial overview and guidance, and has actually been our advisor on this project. And by the way, Jason, just so you know, so John, John is here from Portugal at 12:30 in the morning, or maybe 1 o'clock by now. So he was able to join us. So I just want to let you know.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for being here. This is Barbara. I'm running the meeting. I'm Mayor Pro Tem. So, and thank you for all your work on this. So, Patty, should I put up one of these documents first, or should?
Yeah, why don't you put up the that sort of written summary review that just kind of encapsulates,
Okay.
I hope as best as possible, encapsulates kind of how this work group, which consists of Joan Mahaffey, Dave Cossin, Bob Boer, Steve Wirtz, and me. Of course, John has attended most of those conversations. And Peter, in the very beginning, would sat in on some of the early meetings that we had, even in trying to figure out, what kind of RFP we wanted to put together. And obviously, Jason has been sort of our guardian angel and guiding light on a lot of this. So obviously, other than the council, other folks have not seen this write-up. I just made it truly sort of a briefing paper or one pager that basically distills the idea that, yes, we had this work group. I would say we all put our best effort into meeting some of the challenges of creating the RFP, working through what the ask was, Obviously getting in the bids, we got 2 bids that came in, and then trying to figure out how to evaluate these bids. And what we discovered, because it is a design build, so both companies in this case are giving us what is their vision, what is their proposed, solution, right, to meet the requests that we put into the RFP. And there's similarities and there's differences. The bottom line is that both companies are excellent companies. We've got, certainly Jason has been kind enough to at least share his own, sort of broad experiences. And these are both competent companies. They each would do, I'm sure, a very good job for us, to meet our needs and expectations. And so we struggled, if I am reflecting correctly, work group members, trying to be faithful to, your comments and your thoughts. But we did struggle. It's hard to compare in some cases apples and oranges. One company tended to, let's say, envision a more robust solution in many cases. Not to say it's right or wrong, just, a way of going about responding to the sort of construction that they thought would be appropriate to help solve our water problems, right, our stormwater problems. And the other company was, I wouldn't say frugal, I think they were much more sort of efficient in their thought about, or functional, pragmatic in their thought, to say, well, here's how you solve this problem. You do A or B, and both of them actually gave us alternative bids. So they gave us their primary bid, and then they also came back and gave sort of an alternative one, which in both cases was a little more frugal. But still trying to compare in different work areas, each company's proposed solution or approach to solving that part of the sort of stormwater flow was difficult to compare, side by side. So I did at least take a step back and say, what are our needs? What are things that would just truly help us move forward? But we also have a budget, and we really, to the extent can exceed the budget that we said. We had a cap based on the federal and state funding that we have. And that was really what we said as our funding, limit. And so that was part of, I think, our interpretation of what they offered to do for us. It may not be the final product, because they still, each company, whichever company we decide on, is still going to have to do that engineering survey. They're still going to have to sort of get, down and dirty and crunch the numbers. Some things may change for sure, but one company exceeded our budget and the other company just about came in at our upper limit. So that's kind of where we are at this point.
Donna Schreiner.
Oops. So
joined the meeting.
Are there any questions so far, or for the work group, any of our members wanted to add anything, at least to this sort of one pager?
Can we just have give a list of who was on the work group, just so we can recognize them?
Oh yeah, if you look at the top paragraph, the opening paragraph, we have Bob Boer, Dave Cossin, me, Joan Mahaffey, Steve Wirtz, and then, as I said, John, Mayor Compton, and Jason did participate in most of our meetings, not necessarily influencing us per se, but just part of the active discussion.
Okay. So,
Patty, yeah, I have just one comment, and that's, I think most of us dealt with contracting and bidding, and when an RFP comes out and there's a ceiling as far as what we're asking them to do, normally if a bidder comes in 45% over that that bidder is disqualified. I know there's only 2. I'm just wondering why that's not a bigger factor in all these discussions.
Well, I think even with the paving that we've done, like the road paving, we have sometimes in other bids gotten, pretty, or even in the landscaping, we've gotten pretty extreme, I would say extreme, but, very different quotes that I've witnessed over the years. I remember even with some landscapers, depending on who they were, some came in really high, some came in really low. I don't remember that we automatically disqualified them. I mean, ultimately they probably were.
But did we give them a ceiling, did we do an RFP where we said this is the
Oh, no,
amount?
that's a good point. So I don't know in those cases, we just actually put out an RFP and said, this is what we need. Tell us how much, you would charge us for it, right? In this case,
Right.
we actually did have a ceiling that we hit.
Right,
And
right.
John may be willing to at least comment on that, but we knew that we had X amount of dollars. And we had
Right.
talked it out with Jason a little bit to say, do we even want to say to them, in our RFP, this is, we want you to only write to this amount of money. I think initially we didn't do that, but then, when the guys came out to do the site visit
Yeah.
and walk around town, I mean, that was a question that came up, which was a fair question. And John did tell them this is the upper limit. For every company that came out and did the walk with us, he told them what our upper limit was.
And so they were actually allowed to give us a second bid, right? But they still
They
didn't come within our,
Well, two
within our,
things. And I wanted to highlight two important things. One
Okay.
is we always knew that we thought we were going to be over the amount because we wanted to get some numbers from them that was above what we thought we had to spend. And so we threw a little bit more work in than we thought was feasible for them to get in within the budget. Okay, so we were trying to get them, not trying, but we wanted to see some budgeting for future stuff to be potentially over it. Number one. Number two, with this type RFP, we encourage them to provide any additional information that may assist them with the pricing. So it's not uncommon for them in this type bid situation to say, here's what you asked for, and here's some suggestions that we think you should look at. So those two things are normal in this type of bid.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, for example, like that gravel wetland at the base of Center and Washington Grove Lane.
Right.
Originally, we weren't going to include that. We decided to include it in part just so we wanted itemized work areas, right? You wanted to see the cost per work area. And if we decided we would postpone, let's say something that was a sort of expensive, cost or development, that one we might put aside to get the rest of the work done.
So there's a sense of once we decide the contractor, we're going to prioritize certain areas over another. So one of the issues that came up in the report is one of the companies over-engineered, or I forget what the right word was. So isn't it possible that we could, if we like what a contractor better, we could say, well, we like you better, we want to give you the contract, but this is too much. Let's change it a little bit. Let's tweak it and bring it down to a better price. To me, like that makes it even harder to compare because these things are not static. They're, after the bid is let, then we're going to be negotiating with them. So that kind of adds a layer of complexity. Or maybe Jason, is that something that you can address?
Yeah, I always feel like in these, and I tried to stress this to the team when you look at everything, and I think they did a good job of this. Before they really looked at the pricing, they talked about what they liked with both the contracting team and the engineering team between the two, and what were sort of the benefits and the results. Then they looked at the pricing, and you kind of have to make a discussion of both of them to decide what is your best way forward. I think that as was sort of demonstrated here, the difference between the two bids is that you have one that is a contractor that's hired an engineer and one that's an engineering firm that's hired a contractor. And they kind of have a different feel to them when you both look at them and when you see how they work through the work. So, and there's not a right or wrong way to do it with it. It's more that the two have different approaches. I like to equate it to, you guys have all probably had work done in your house, and some people come in and they are very informative and have everything laid out to a T up front. and other people come in and you kind of work through it with the contractor and they do it. In the end, you still get what you want. It's just a question of kind of how the process works with the two. And then lastly, you look at the pricing and you decide, one of the bids, the Biohabitats bid, has more engineering cost associated with it. And there is a benefit to that. And you have to weigh out if that benefit is worthwhile. And, it's more a question of you looking at the work that you have and judging to make sure of what you want.
Yeah, that's all fine, but the thing is that there's two contractors. One which is saying, okay, we can do this work for this amount of money. We have another one that's saying we can do this amount, but there's 40 whatever percent more than that. Once we make our decision, we're stuck with one of these contractors. And if Biohabitat spends, if they come back and say, well, this is actually, after we've looked at all this design, this is all we can do, then that's all we're going to get. And I just don't understand. If I was having some contractors come in and do my house, I don't think any of us would have a hard time deciding which of these two we would be going with.
So let me comment.
Could I speak to
Bob, just a second. I see your hand up. I just wanted to finish up that thought with Peter. So one of the things, Biohabitats is the engineering firm, again, well-respected, and they do partner with a construction company to actually, do the construction work. And then SMI is predominantly the general contractor, the contracting company, and then they partner with engineer who comes in and helps them, do all the specs and stuff. The one thing I personally, just me, was concerned about is, as Peter had suggested, so Biohabitats, one of their comments in our meeting with them was to say, again, they've exceeded both in their original proposal or bid, and then in their alternative, they still came in at, 1.2 or $990,000, on either end. And one of the questions we said is, well, I know you still have to do all the engineering and the actual calculations and, all that kind of stuff once we decide which one to work with. But even so, if their vision is, that robust, and then they said, well, even if, you sort of run out of money, basically, that we would suggest, this is Biohabitats, do the engineering study first, get that done. And then if you have some money left over, then you could probably do one or two of, your priority construction sites, or you'll just, continue to look for more money. That is a different approach to me than for the other company, SMI, to say, okay, we'll work within, your budget, more or less. So I don't understand how one company, like Peter was talking about, if you hire somebody for your home and they say, well, we really think we need to spend, let's say, $900,000, and you ask them to come down another 25% to meet your budget, there's some stuff you're not going to get done, right? So that was kind of where I was falling out myself. Now, we had some discussions within our work group. We didn't come to consensus 100%. We had some, differences of opinion. At the end of the day, whichever company we feel most comfortable with, whichever one, we still have to have them do that design study, that engineering part of it, in order to hone in on exactly what is, what the actual cost will be and what we have. I'm just looking at right now these proposals, which I still think are substantive. The proposals say, company number one, Biohabitat, says, well, initially 1.2 million, or we can, kind of knock it down, adjust some things, and then it would be $990,000. It's still over our budget. The other company, again, is kind of teetering between what, 690 and 750 plus or minus, and yet, they're doing things at a sort of more pragmatic approach. I'll stop there because Bob wants to say something.
Yeah, I think that we're in danger of comparing things that aren't really comparable here in term when we start talking about the numbers here, because we did not put out a set of bid documents that each of these companies would bid on the same project. We put out some ideas and some thoughts and some goals, and we asked the companies to put their minds to the project and come up with ideas that they thought would be feasible. The numbers are very difficult to compare for various reasons. One, there's different elements in each one of them, as Patty pointed out. But one of the biggest things is that the biohabitats assumed that all but 2 or 3 of the areas would need Montgomery County permitting. So they essentially were designing to those standards, to the standards that would pass Montgomery County standards, and have the documentation to actually submit for Montgomery County permits. SMI did not. They are assuming that I think only one of them would require a permit. That's a big deal. The other big dollar issue in the bioswales was that SMI calculated that there would be no underdrains needed. And what underdrains are is at the bottom of the bioswale, 3 feet down, is a pipe. And that pipe then has to go to what they call daylight. It has to go out into another sewer, or it has to run out on some other place. So from that 3 foot down, there's a pipe that runs all the way to get the water out. Biohabitats included those in their pricing of the bioswales, and SMI did not. So when we look at the two proposals, the dollar figures are really not the most important elements. And we didn't put it out as a bid, so it's not like they went over bid. We asked them to give us proposals so we could see what they could do.
I thought we said
a quick comment on the bioswales, just to follow up.
Yeah.
Both companies had talked about bioswales, but even when I went back and looked at SMI, aside from the what they call the underground piping that would connect, one swell to the next and kind of sequentially move water, even the SMI that the bioswales they put in there did not come up to the same cost as biohabitats. And the question would be are they using, in this case, what we call a bioswale is a little more complicated than a natural earthen swale. It has more layers, and it actually has a tendency to retain water more and allow some of that eventually to either absorb or eventually slowly percolate out. So in both companies, yes, they mentioned bioswales, but the one company seemed to just have them as much more expensive than the other. And the question about permits, I think, is still on the table. To know whether we would need permits for any of the bioswales or only in certain areas.
Yeah, I think we should have Jason speak to that, since he spoke to us as a group.
That's a good idea.
Oh, Eva has something to say. Or not?
Yes, sorry, I was muted. That was one of my questions, is do we need the permits or not? Because that seems to make a big difference. And I guess Jason's going to speak to that. And then I was also wondering, the engineer that SMI partners with and the contracting company that Biohabitats partners with, were anyone from those partner companies involved in this? Did they come out? Because I guess my thought is like, well, if SMI has to get an engineer to come out, that could and do work, I don't know, that could drastically change what they're proposing, I would think. Anyway, I'll let Jason speak to the permits and I'll sort out my thoughts.
I think I can address both things. So SMI has hired an outside engineer. He's a small company, 1 to 2 man shop. And Andy has been doing this, at least that I know of. I've worked with him for probably the last 10 years. And so, but you're talking a small shop. Biohabitat's a little bit bigger and does a little bit more. As far as the permitting question, it's a fine line between the projects. Okay. The work that is out next to Washington Grove Lane that is of a large enough scale, it has to be permitted. There's no question. Both engineering firms totally agree on it. The laying of the pipe, for example, and the retrofit of the stuff is there's a maintenance ability within the code to allow you to come in and do maintenance within the public right of way. So for instance, when Montgomery County comes out and fixes a pipe or does minor work within the public right of way, they don't go and get a permit for all of it. Okay. So there's a fine line there, and SMI is basically saying, hey, I think we can break up the projects and keep it on the lesser side of the permitting. And Biohabitats is saying we think we need to take it to the further side of permitting.
Another comment, I'm just sort of cherry picking here, forgive me, but in looking at the work areas, one of our major concerns for those of you just in broad sort of envisioning is Chestnut Avenue. So Chestnut Avenue, again, as an avenue, that's where the WSSC sewer and water lines, in general, sewer and water lines run along the avenues, right? And then they feed into the various private properties. Chestnut Avenue is one of the main avenues where there's a lot of water that is sheeting across from a little further up,
yes.
like from Chestnut Road, and sheeting across, in some cases, some of the private properties. And right now, there's been a lot of, I think, over time, soil erosion, things that have kind of settled out along Chestnut Avenue, and it is a problem. For water that's coming down, let's say Oak and Center, okay, just to kind of put that in your head. So one of the concerns we had is, if I remember correctly, so Biohabitats actually wanted to put bioswales, and segmentally, I think, but along Chestnut Avenue. And one of the concerns that some of us had raised was to actually install a bioswale, which again requires, you know, a certain depth, what, 3 feet or so, or maybe more, but it includes these layers of like gravel and sand, and eventually towards the top you get, you know, sort of soil or grass at the top. But it is a layered process because it allows water to come in and act like a sponge, right, and absorb and retain, and eventually some of it may still percolate out. But putting something that is, I would say, you know, costly enough, right, to put down lengths of Center Avenue, including, I'm sorry, Chestnut Avenue, including behind the church, leading, you know, behind the church parking lot, that sort of entire length on either side of Center Street would not only be a lot of the expense, but also if WSSC, for whatever reason, had to come in and dig up a sewer or water line, they potentially could damage that bioswale. And again, we'd have to figure out how to, you know, repair it. So we tried to look at avoiding bioswales down Chestnut Avenue and doing things like earthen swales or other options. And there again is kind of a difference between what we saw in Biohabitat's proposal, which again, not saying it's right or wrong, it's just that was their version. And then in the other case, SMI looked at actually doing more of a regrading, in a way, of certain parts of Chestnut Avenue that would create more of a berm, which then would create a natural sort of earthen swale or ditch on one end to try to, again, contain water to prevent it from flowing further into some of the residential properties. So like I said, it is hard. Bob made a good comment too about, you know, hard to sometimes compare apples and oranges, but when you're thinking about what's your functional, and to me it's pragmatic, but what's your functional outcome? On top of that, the bioswales, I think one company mentioned, it might have been SMI, regardless of who puts them in and where they go. By the way, we have a lot of trees and a lot of leaves in town. So every fall, what's going to happen is you're going to get a dump of leaves everywhere, right, as we know, including those leaves that would fall into all these bioswales. Those need to be cleaned out because you don't want to clog up the sort of capacity of the bioswale to sort of receive, retain, and percolate water. And so that was another piece of information, is to say, we do want some bioswales in certain places. And in some cases, they were actually going to be along the roadways, not the avenues, for various connection purposes and channeling of water. And so we have to also be mindful, depending on where and if and how many bioswales we want to be installed, is we also have to clean them out every year or keep them clean. from leaves, excuse me. So again, I'm getting sort of into some of the granularity. We tried to put that into the pros and cons spreadsheet that I also sent to the council. That was getting more into some of the details. Everyone on the work group had an opportunity to kind of submit their pros and cons for each of the two contractors, what you liked and, you know, and say liked and didn't like, but what you saw was an advantage or a positive and what was maybe more of a detriment or maybe sort of a, you know, disadvantage to working with that company. Again, they're both good companies, but looking at some of the details of what they proposed. And again, I take their proposal seriously. It may change depending on what they finally, you know, calculate, do their engineering study, etc. But this is what we have to go on right now is what they proposed, including their estimated cost.
Okay. Rob, did you want to say something?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Patty, and thank you for the entire work group. I gather, and I think, Patty, you alluded to the fact that there was not unanimity, and I think it would be helpful if the others could briefly share their perspectives, and if the other members have a recommendation. It's not clear. I'm putting aside the cost issue, and we can decide whether there's really only one qualifying bid, in which case, you know, if that's what we want to do, then we have, I mean, even SMI is higher. But I think since it seems that there wasn't consensus, could we hear from the others about their view and if anyone has a recommendation?
Wait, are you saying that Patty made a recommendation?
No, Patty, I didn't hear Patty to be making a recommendation. I thought what Patty said was that the working group didn't reach a consensus on recommending one of the two bidders. And so I was wondering, given that there wasn't consensus, we've heard a lot from Patty, which I understand you were leading the group, but I just was wondering if others could briefly share their thoughts, and if any of the members did have a recommendation for the council, that would be helpful to hear.
Well, we didn't have unity.
You're
100%
saying
unity.
information that we have a very complete report that they gave us, which I assume represents the total group. So are you saying that they would share information that's not in this report?
I'm saying exactly, not to be difficult, Peter, but I'm just saying exactly what I just said, which is Patty said, here's the report. The report doesn't have a recommendation for us to pick one or the other. She was explicit about that. I think I heard her say because there wasn't consensus. Given that there wasn't consensus, I'm just wondering if we could hear briefly from the others on the working group. I mean, if you don't want to share your thoughts, that's fine.
I think that's a fair question, because I do feel like we're sort of like 50-50 right now. And if somebody has another opinion that's gonna, you know, that they feel strongly about, like let's hear it, and we can consider it. Doesn't mean it's going to make us decide that way. But yeah, I think if people do want to speak up with their opinion or their recommendation.
Yeah. I'm not trying to put the members on the spot if they don't have anything else to add besides what. And Patty's comments were very helpful. I'm not trying to. This is not a critique. Patty, thank you very much for your work, and that was a very thorough presentation. But at the end of the day, we are left with the working group not making a recommendation to us, understanding, you know, making observations and presenting the pros and cons of each. And that's fine. I mean, maybe it would have been good, but maybe it wasn't really feasible here.
And we do have a document with the pros and cons. So if somebody does want to speak up after that, we can move to that document and take a look at that.
Yeah, that's why I anonymize the pros and cons, just to keep it sort of holistic. But absolutely, I'll be happy to share my personal opinion, but I'll leave it to the rest of the working group to share theirs first.
Yeah, that'd be great, Patty.
I'd like to say that this is a summary. None of this that is presented is new to the group. we all had a chance to evaluate the two bids, pro and con. And these summaries are part of our discussion. We had several meetings about this. The two companies, you know, Pie in the Sky versus Clevering, with Pie in the Sky being Biohabitat and the more clever being SMI. But this does reflect the work of the group. This is not Patty's opinion.
No, I wasn't suggesting that. The opposite. I understand this reflects the group. It's just it doesn't contain a recommendation, and so I was just asking if the members of the work group did have their own view. It sounded like Patty had her own view about which one she would recommend, and others might as well. I just wanted to have an opportunity for any of the members of the group who did want to share their own personal recommendation, if they have one. I just wanted to make sure they had the opportunity to do that. It would be helpful, for me at least.
Yeah, me too.
I can make a couple of comments, with not necessarily a recommendation, but that I think my feeling was, I wanted to see how the council reacted to the pros and cons and the discussion statements to see where the council's priorities were, in order that the working group, might then have an idea. We'll say, well, no, all right, this group or this bidder or that bidder better meets what you're looking at. And a couple of things in the discussion that came on to Peter's point as to, why did we even consider the high bid? For me personally anyway, it was is there at least fancier engineering? Gave us the opportunity which Patty mentioned, that to spend all or most of our money on engineering, and then the engineering would be done. So when we later came up with more money, we could, finish the project. So I think it's worth still keep them in the field. And in reaction to Eva's question about the engineer, their engineer was, is part of the bid. It's not that after we get the bid, they will go out and look for an engineer. And in fact, he was very prominent in the question and answer sessions. We had sessions with each bidder answering questions, and SMI's engineer was very sort of their lead spokesman in that. So he's well worked into them as far as that goes. But I thought we just needed to get some. Whether we ever make a recommendation or not, we need to have some council feedback on after they do all this stuff, and finally just to reiterate Bob's point. This comparison is very difficult in these between these two things.
Oh, okay, I've put up the pros and cons document. And I feel like we're not really making progress in coming to a decision.
Barbara, can I ask
see
a question?
Mary has her hand up. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, if we spent all the money we have for engineering, then nothing's been fixed, and then we have to go find like $500,000 someplace to have it done. I'm just confused as to what the plan would be if we picked that, more detailed and maybe long-term pie in the sky view. I mean, what would we do if we just ended up at the end with an engineering plan? I mean, where are the funds going to come from to do it?
I guess we some work done, but not all of it.
But we have no way of knowing,
because they do break it down between engineering and construction. So we
I would say one thing: whenever you guys pick the final firm, you're going to, and we talked about this in the working team, they're going to go to about a 30% design, which is they've surveyed everything. They have what they know they can deliver. They won't have every detail, but they'll know what they can deliver. And that's where you're going to evaluate and say, for instance, hey, we want you to put in this, this, and this, because that's within the budget. And maybe instead of doing this over here, we want you to do this design work. You still have a point in the process where you're going to manipulate it to get the best delivery you can. But to your point, and I think it's something to consider between the two bids, is no matter what, one bidder is going to deliver, by the way it's shaking out and the way it's projecting on here, one is probably going to deliver a little bit more product. One would deliver a little bit more engineering. Okay. That's the way they're both set up. That's clear there. That could be, and that engineering could be a more enhanced design. It could be, it has better landscaping in it. Things like that could be there. So don't, but you will get something because you're going to maneuver. It won't be all engineering. So it could, think of it as a 20% sway between engineering and delivered product.
Yeah, but Jason, 30% of 700,000 versus 30% of 1.2 million is a big difference.
No, I don't mean 30% of the dollar figure. I mean 30% of, they've done a 30% design. So if you were thinking in the architectural world, this would be like an SD, a schematic design, where they come in and they go, okay, we know we can deliver this bioswale here. We have the gas line plotted. We have the sanitary sewer looked at. We have the water. We've got everything figured out in the area, and we know we can put a bioswale here. And they will be able to say to you, and this bioswale from here to here is going to cost you $250,000. To do this over here is going to cost you this. Hey, we suggest that we do a berm here on Chestnut, just picking a random place, instead of a bioswale, because you get more bang for your buck and it avoids this problem that you have, like whatever it could be, right? At the 30% design, they'll be able to do that. What they won't do is fully detail all the engineering, okay? So that's where they can still accept, hey, let's go do this, let's go do that. Hey, let's make this a little bit longer and use money there. Let's make this a little bit shorter and do this. And that's the way the proposal is written, is to allow that flexibility so that you can sit there and dictate the design as you go through as you work your way through the design. And it's not a hard and fast thing. The important thing to look at here is the budgets that both are providing, and decide, what type of firm and group do you want doing this? If you think the work is closer to maintenance, right, that's closer to what you have with an SMI. If you think the work is closer and needs more design, that's what you have with biohabitats. Neither one is wrong or right. It's just sort of the approaches the two took are going to be more down and dirty with SMI. They're going to deliver what they said, but it's going to be a little more straightforward. And if you look at their proposal and the breakdown, they said, we're going to try to be more budget minded and go after this. Biohabitats is taking the stance of, we want to be a little bit more creative, a little bit more engineering, a little bit more design elements to it. And both are good. It's what you as a community want to pay for and do. Okay.
But Jason, it can't be that both are right.
It can't. I mean, it really can.
No,
be.
I'm sorry. One of these approaches is got to be the one more likely to successfully mitigate the stormwater problems that we have in town. And here's my concern, and this kind of gets back to something that maybe a year ago, Bob Boer raised on I think in a town council meeting, which is, how do we know this is actually going to work? We could go with the less expensive SMI bid that has significantly less engineering and more work, and things will get built, and more will get built and done. But what if that's money flushed down the drain, pun intended? Not that it's funny, because there wasn't sufficient engineering work to determine if the work that SMI is doing actually is the right work, the best work, designed the right way to achieve our objectives. We will have built stuff, built more than it seems like the same amount of money with the approach from with the bid that Biohabitats was offering, but it seems less clear. And Jason, too, you said like it's really what the town would prefer. I mean, sure, at one level, we are the town council's ultimate decision makers, but I'm not equipped to make an informed judgment as to which approach we should make. We have the budget issue. It's a constraint of a sort, but it's not a permanent constraint, right? I mean, it's likely we'd be able to get more money. It may not be a good use of money to spend all of it in engineering, or it actually may be the best use. And I have no idea. And I don't think anyone else on the town council has any idea. And so this is, I think, what we're looking for Soltesz as the owner's engineer, and the working group as well, to hopefully make informed recommendations. And again, this is the pros and cons in the summary is very helpful, but I'm not sure I have the ability to make a good decision at this point on behalf of the town, which is my job.
Right.
So,
oh, go ahead, Jason.
So just to give you, you asked a couple questions on me in there, and I'll give you my thoughts on it.
That'd be great.
Because you're doing a design build, okay, you're not producing a drawing that the contractor has to bid on and go forward. When you're SMI, and this is the sort of difference that you see in the bids, the engineer is going to produce enough to convey what needs to be done. Okay. So for example, if you need a pipe replaced in the road, how much information do you need to replace the pipe when you're the contractor? Whenever it's Biohabitats doing it, since they're not the contractor, they're the engineer, they have to make sure that everything is perfectly locked down. My equivalent to this is, and I'm equating it to housework because people have gotten houses redone, is say you're getting your kitchen redone. Sometimes you need to do a full plan to explain to the contractor exactly what you envision it to be. Other times you're able to talk to them. They sketch something out on a piece of paper and say, hey, we're going to put the stove here. We're going to put the refrigerator here, and we're going to put the sink here. And everybody's like, yep, that's exactly what I want. And in the end, both of them, you get the kitchen redone. Sometimes in some situations, you need a higher level because you want to make sure the contractor does it exactly right. Other times when you tell the contractor, you've got $30,000 to do this, or $100,000, whatever number you want to pick, and he says, yep, I can get it done for that, and everybody goes forward. I think the big thing to understand here is that in both situations, you have to assume you're going to get a product that works. One of the reasons why we talk about the 30% design is it's going to deliver, and it's really important because we mentioned this in the proposal, is that they have to tell us what the benefit to the town is at the 30%. Hey, we're going to control this much water. This is the result. So whenever you guys look at the pricing at the 30%, you're able to say, look, we can spend $200,000 here and we get this result. We can spend $400,000 here and we get this result. And you can plug and play and make sure that it's delivering the best bang for the buck. And keep in mind here, guys, I'm an engineer, right? I like engineering. I think it's something that is needed. And both SMI and Biohabitats are proposing engineering. So don't think of it as one is doing a lot and one, and one's doing none. It's more like one is not using the engineering document to convey to the contractor what needs done perfectly. He can sit there and say, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this. And the contractor's like, yeah, I understand. Or no, I don't. Can you provide me a little bit more information? Because he's ultimately paying for everything. Whereas with Biohabitats, they have to get everything down just perfectly because they're hiring the contractor. And if they don't show enough and they make a mistake, it's on them to pay for it, not on the contractor. So that's the difference. If the contractor doesn't quite have enough information, he'll figure it out or put it together because it's all riding on him. So that's the difference between the two proposals. And I kind of said this to the working team, and I think it's important for you guys to consider. I think if you are going to build the gravel wetland, I think that is right up Biohabitats. I would actually recommend them for that. You don't need a Biohabitats, and you guys didn't officially ask for my recommendation, but I'm kind of giving it for you. You don't need Biohabitats to come in and do some swale work and the bioswale and that sort of thing. I think you're getting more than you need for that level of work. And so if you guys think that you really want to do the engineering, this is why I say it's the town's input. If you really want to do the engineering and put more dollars in engineering and less in deliverable, then I think a Biohabitats firm is better for you because it can do that. If your goal is to do more of the, what I'm going to call maintenance side with enhancements, such as the other work up in the site, I think SMI's bid is more up your alley because there's not as much opportunity to see the real enhancements that Biohabitats brings to the table. And I go in on bids with both companies and know both of them. And I would, that's why I said I kind of can recommend both of them. But you guys, this is where I say the town needs to do it. When you guys threw in the potential of doing the gravel wetlands because you wanted to see that pricing, you kind of have to decide if that's really a reality that you want to pay for that engineering. If you do, I think a Biohabitats may be better. If you don't, you really want to make sure you get the stuff done up in site, like fixing the conveyance issues of the storm drain pipe and fixing where the water's not going in well and those sort of things, then I think the SMI bid's probably a better bid your way. So that's my input to kind of answer your question.
Okay, Chris, and then John, and then Bob.
You're on mute. Chris, you're on mute.
Thank you. Anyway, so a question for
Jason?
and Jason, yeah, is because you said that you've worked with both of them, and I guess, and my question is what is the degree of confidence that you have in both of them to accomplish what it is the town's trying to get done? And in the long run, and it's kind of like what Peter's saying, if we're trying to get water management work done, and one is saying, well, we have a lot of engineering work that we need to do, and we'll give you a high degree of confidence, but then we're going to run out of money. You're going to have to go find some more to get the actual work complete. Seems short-ended. But with that said, and again, going back to experience, what is the confidence level that you have in both of them to get the work accomplished for the town's needs?
Okay. So let's start with Biohabitats. Biohabitats, design side I have worked with. They are very competent, know their stuff very, very well. I have not worked with their delivery contractor directly before, so I can't speak to them, but judging by the fact that Biohabitats has done multiple projects with them, I think it's fair to say that they're a solid contractor. So I think that you can expect a high level of delivery on what they said they can do. The only thing that you're going to carry is more design and oversight cost. With SMI, Andy Whaley, who is the engineer, as I said, I've worked with him for about 10 years. He has designed and constructed probably 10 projects that I can think of off the top of my head, 10, 11 projects. All went well. He is a Army veteran. He worked for the Army Corps of Engineers and designed a lot of stuff overseas during different things. So he's got that sort of mindset of less is more, sort of do it efficiently and go from there. SMI, I've just finished up about, I don't know, $20 million worth of work with SMI, and they did a great job. They know how to deliver and do good work. So, like I said, all of them, both contractors can deliver the work. I think it's important to look at the recommendations that they gave and look at when you look at their pricing, also look at the priority as a town council of the jobs that you would like to get done in there. And I think that's an important side to this because, as I said, and I forgot a couple people raised this on the committee, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting some names, but I do think if you want to deliver the gravel wetland, I do think Biohabitats is better qualified for it. I think if you are looking at more of the maintenance side, I think you might want to look toward SMI. I would, but I have high confidence in both of them.
Thank you. No, it's good. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, okay, I can appreciate that this sort of a decision, if you will, is kind of, it's difficult to get your hands around what the deciding factors are. But I hope everyone's gotten the message. Jason has said it in a fairly mild way. I think others have said it as well. The difficulty we have as a town is deciding what is it we want from this project. So exactly what outcome do we want? And Bob has, repeatedly indicated that if we want an outcome that reduces water flow into the West Woods, if that's our priority, and I'm not saying it should be, but supposing it was, then we really need to know what each aspects of the work, how that would actually affect that outcome. And at the moment we don't, of course. But as Jason has pointed out, you would by the time the 30% design that it's been looked at in enough detail, we would then know that result based on the work we have asked the companies to address. What we've asked the companies to address is based on Soltez's recommendations, Jason's recommendations, as to what we can do in the residential area to impact the flow into the West Woods. And as Patty alluded to, I believe, and I don't know who made that estimate, it may have been Soltez themselves, that the problem in the Westwoods may, that the water running off the residential area may be 40% of the water, maybe. So you have to look at it and say, okay, well, if we can only reduce the flow out of the residential area with the best engineering we can get, and what opportunities there are to retard the water flow. If we can only cut that by, let's just be optimistic, a third, then that's what we'll get. So that's that goal, if that was the main sort of a principal goal. The other goal, of course, is more easy to get your head around, and that is we'd like to keep the water off the roads, off private property, and flowing on our existing or improved maintenance water control systems. And a fair amount of what we ask these companies to bid on is exactly that. For example, along Chestnut Road, not Avenue, but Road. I think Phil Meadow was here before, and a fair amount of water flows across his property, the former Kurtz property, and that's because it isn't flowing along Chestnut Road to center. It's flowing across the property. So if we improve the collection of the water along Chestnut Road, it will reduce the flow on his property. Then we need to improve it running down center. All of that is existing, but degraded water control. So if our goal priorities are that, then you can obviously draw the conclusion is obvious, that to get that done, might not involve the world's most extensive engineering, but it would involve a lot of practical application of water control, just to manage that. So long story short is that Jason was trying to say that it depends what the town outcome, what we want as an outcome. And we won't know what we can do with our money until we get enough engineering design to make that assessment. I think the two companies may approach the design differently, and we may get cheaper design from one than the other. But then whether or not that will allow us to assess and decide among our goals as to what we can do. That's kind of the way I see the decision here, is if we wanted it engineered extensively so that we get the best system designed as possible, but we can't, but that doesn't leave a lot of money to actually install it, then we would then decide, okay, we're only going to install what we can afford. We'll have to get more money to finish the job. And that's just an outcome that we saw that at the beginning. We knew, as Jason pointed out, we knew that we didn't have enough money really to do everything we'd like to do. But now we're up against it. What is it we really want to get done with the funds we have? So I hope I've kind of helped sharpen it. I think Jason did a great job sharpening the criteria, if you will. But yeah, unfortunately, it's going to, because it's a design build, we don't go in with knowing that the design will give us something, enough of what we really would like to get accomplished with these funds, and whether we're going to have to get more funds to do it.
So John, though, when you talk about what our priorities are, I mean, you and Patty and others are probably better versed in setting that out and helping because I feel like we're really, I don't think this town council, I mean, I have, well, generally speaking, I feel like a lot of the members of the town council, even after this 1 hour discussion, we're not really sure where to go. So, and I think Rob was really trying to get that direction from the committee, and all of this information is really helpful, but I don't feel like it has put us on a path to a decision.
Okay, and Bob will probably have to begin.
Amen, sister.
I want to say one more thing. From my point of view, the solution in the West Woods is not going to be what we do with this project is not going to have a major impact on the solution in the West Woods. Sorry, Patty, but it isn't. And therefore, we definitely want to address the problem in the West Woods, but we're going to need a design, and Soltesz has suggested one. There are others in the West Woods, all of which will cost more money, a lot more money. Let's just say $1 million minimum to implement that solution. And so we're looking at that anyway. So if the West Woods is our principal goal, I would seriously, my personal recommendation was don't expect to solve it with some fancy engineering in the residential area. It might impact it a bit, but it's not going to get us where we want to go. On the other hand, we do, with this money, which we have a windfall of, we really could get a major repair of our stormwater management, our control of water on private property and on the roads. I think we can really do a pretty good job there. So it's once again, it's a matter of what do we expect to get, and I think that would help us make a decision. If you decide at this point, what, given these estimates, and Jason's right, we wanted to see what these things would cost, and now we know. Roughly, we know. We don't quite know the balance between design and construction, but we have a pretty good idea. And now we're probably in a position to say, okay, we do want to do what we can for the West Woods, so we're going to go with a well-designed system. We can't build it all, but we'll build it all. We'll get some money and build it later. Or we're going to say, okay, we'll take what we can get with reducing flow into the West Woods, but we definitely want to control all the water around this area and improve our system. That's the kind of way only way I've been able to simplify it in my own head. So.
Right.
And
John,
can I add thing?
No, can I speak here? I've been
as a council person
for a long time.
I would like to. That's fine, but I'm fine. As a council person listening to this conversation, okay, we've been working on this for Patty. How long has this been? Like
a while.
2 years.
A year or so. And
2 years.
So the council got first of all, as council members, we can go out and we can talk to everybody and get the information we need. That's one thing we can do. Plus, we've been to a number of meetings together talking about this. We've sat through 2 special meetings interviewing the 2 vendors, and we got a pretty good feel for what they were about. Tonight, Jason, we have the luxury of having an amazing expert, Jason, here, kind of he's been giving us information all along, guiding us. And, we're pretty intelligent people. We should be listening to the clues that are coming through. Patty, and I would recommend everybody in the council to talk with Steve Wertz, who is the most knowledgeable person in town as far as what the problems are, as far as, the drainage and water. Nobody knows that, better than Steve does. We've been given a lot of information. It's our job as council members to listen to this and figure out what to do. There's no, as we already said, Bob said apples and oranges. Yeah, it's apples and oranges. There's no right answer. But I think Jason has said that whoever we pick, okay, we're going to have time to work with them to get the most we can out of them. And I think that our job as council people is to figure out, okay, well, what do we want to accomplish? And who's going to be the best vendor to do it? And I don't want to spend 6 more months. We've been talking about this for 6 months, and we said we have plenty of time. We have plenty of time. Well, we don't have plenty of time, and I don't think it's necessary. I think that it's pretty obvious where we should go, and that's just my opinion.
Well, can you say it? Can you say what the obvious choice is? This is Eva.
I think SMI is. I think based on what I've talked to, I've tried to talk to most of the members on this advisory group. I got their information. I believe that if I could bring Jason, tie him up, and torture him, he would say that for our needs, SMI would be the best, because we need maintenance. We haven't done a lot of maintenance on water for a long time. And I just think that SMI, I like the fact that they're telling us what they're going to do. And I do believe that Biohabitat is, I've worked with these companies. He's the Booz Allen of this. They're gonna come in with wonderful designs. They're gonna give us all that wonderful information, and then they're gonna come back and go, oh, but we've run out of money.
Okay, so that is so super helpful. So I want to thank Peter for just saying, here's who I think we should go with. And I know other people have their hands raised, but I'm just going to say this because otherwise I'm going to forget. I think what John said was very helpful, that if we say, if our priority is this, we should go with this company. If our priority is this, we should go with this company. I am hearing that if our priority is the Westwoods, then maybe biohazards. If our priority is improving the stormwater management in town, we should go with SMI. Correct me if I'm wrong. That seems to be the breakdown. I know that the Woods Committee is looking at other funding to address the issues in the Westwoods. So I'm putting the clues together myself and saying, okay, maybe SMI is the way to go. I would love to and that's just off of, I feel like I shouldn't have to be putting the clues together. I would just like to hear people on the committee saying, I think this is the way to go. So I thank you, Peter, for actually giving your opinion. But that's what it's sounding like to me right now. It's also sounding like we should be spending more time on the other end of the 30% design plan. Then we just need to pick one. And then we're going to have so much more information on the other end of the 30% design. That's what I'm getting from all of this so far. Okay, sorry to all the people with their hands raised.
Can I speak?
So yeah, Bob, then Chris, and then Patty.
Okay. So my opinion is that we're not going to make a wrong choice here. So don't worry about that. We won't make a wrong choice. They're both good companies. We'll both get good product out of both companies. I think what is confusing things is that what we put in the RFP was sort of a grab bag of ideas. It wasn't a coherent plan to, as Rob was saying, define the problem, define the solutions, and then put engineering expertise towards those solutions to meet the goals that we state. That hasn't really been done in a systematic way. We've kind of backed into some of that. And I think there's some of it is, yes, it's just maintenance, let's just fix the pipe. But there's others that we are trying to get the best product and the best design out of and the best use of this wonderful money that we have available to us to do this. So we have an opportunity to do something good here. So the things that we put into the RFP were some of this and some of that. I don't think that we would end up with all of the things in the RFP. I never did. And we shouldn't. I mean, what's going to happen, as Jason said, is there's going to be a process. There'll be a survey, there'll be analysis, there'll be assessment, and we'll understand where the water, what water is flowing where and what problems it's causing. And it's at the 30% point, there'll be an initial design of this is how best to solve your problems. And then it can be adjusted from that. And I think that either one of the firms can do that. My own personal opinion was that I was very impressed by the Biohabitat's presentation, and that their breadth of experience and their breadth of knowledge about how to do this in a good way. My impression of SMI was they looked at the list of items that we had put into the grab bag, and then they just said, yeah, that'll be that much, that'll be that much, that'll be that much, that'll be that much. And it's sort of like a contractor versus a designer approach. To go back to the analogy of the kitchen, many times if you say you hire a contractor and say, do me a kitchen, I got $50,000, then you come back and you go, oh, I didn't know you were going to do that. Oh, I didn't know you were going to do that. So there's things on both sides, you know. If you want to end up with what you want, then you define it along the way. And I think that in terms of running out of money, we will be in this process of design build. We will be defining the best use of our money in that process. That's how you do it. So it's not like we'll run out of money. We may not have to do everything that was on those nine items on the list. Not all of those probably should have been done. So it's not like we're going to lose something in the process. But we'll have the best design once we start working with these people. We'll have the best design to meet the problem. Oh, just one of the things, we have to be a little cautious about the permitting issue too. So.
Okay, Chris?
Yes. So this question goes to Jason too, though. So, you know, based on I guess the priorities, you know, residential water management versus West Woods. And it looks like the biggest thing that you were talking about regarding, you know, trying to curtail the water from going across the street into West Woods was, you know, this submerged gravel wetland that's being presented by biohabitats. But even with all of that, it sounds like, you know, from what John the mayor was saying, was we're not going to address West Woods issues 100%. So I guess my question is if we were to go with SMI and they provided everything that they could with the limited funds that we have, we know that we're going to have more money to further mitigate issues in the West Woods. Can they, so Jason, you know, with your background, do you think that we could, if we needed to later on, add a submerged gravel wetland, you know, as part of the phase 2 part, maybe? Jason?
Jason's still there? I can answer that. The answer is yes, because we added the gravel wetland into the RFP as a last minute addition because we were curious to know what that might cost. It was not part of the original RFP because we anticipated with Jason's advice that it would be an expensive piece. And remember, by the time you get to the gravel wetland, that's at the end of Center Street at the intersection of Washington Grove Lane. I would pull up the map if you want to see it just for a visual. We need to stop the water further upstream first anyway. We're working from Grove, you know, to Chestnut and then, you know, on the way through the, you know, the roads and the avenues, so that by the time water is, or whatever water is now flowing into that gravel wetland, hopefully has already been detained further up anyway, right? So that to me was kind of the icing on the cake. If we had the funding available to do the gravel wetland, hey, hallelujah. But we wanted to at least get an idea of how much it would cost. Basically, again, biohabitats, and they may be better engineering when it comes to stream restoration and those kinds of ecological restoration projects. That's a lot. They call themselves biohabitats because that's a lot of what they do. You know, they may do a much better job, but right now, even those two cost comparisons are about double one of the other, irregardless. That was an addition that we added. So the majority of what we were trying to do initially was what we all considered as maintenance and repair of the existing and very limited infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure that we have in town. You've all seen it. You walked around, you see some culverts, some pipes under intersections, you see a couple little channels, some are asphalted, some are, you know, dirt. I mean, that's basically what we have. And we're not trying to create an entire new stormwater infrastructure system. We're not. We were
Right.
really trying initially to maintain, repair, and improve what we have. Okay, and
So
it may
Patty,
be that there are some enhancements to add, a bioswale here or something, more sophisticated in another area, all to retain and slow down the flow of water. Yes, we want to help the West Woods, but we know, and thanks to John and actually Jean at some point, to look for additional external funding to work on that as a next stage project, is to look for big dollar money to start looking at West Woods and stream restoration and all that kind of stuff. And that gravel wetland could then be tagged on to that because it's going to cost that much more money to do that segment of the project. So again, apologies or with respect to Bob, and we understand, where everybody's coming from. I will tell you much more pragmatic. If we are trying to look at what we can get done upstream, yes, to slow the water flow and the velocity and the volume of water that's heading towards the West Woods, at least from this direction, and also to improve and maintain and repair, some of the infrastructure we have. I thought SMI was a much more just pragmatic approach to get the work done, get the biggest bang for the buck, in my point of view, is to say, this is how much money we have, and they're willing to work towards that ceiling, that budget ceiling for us. And again, they're both good companies, and one comes with a high engineering drive and approach, and that's fine. But if we wind up with only an engineering report and the ability to maybe do one or two of these sort of repair, maintenance, enhancement projects, I don't think we will have succeeded. I think in the goal of the town was really to take this opportunity between federal funding and state funding to get a lot of this neglected stormwater infrastructure that we have updated.
So
And
so
then we
Patty,
still
two
need
things.
to look for the rest.
Patty, two things. One is, with all this conversation, there was comments before about how it wasn't clear what the town's goals were with this money. And thank you very much, because you have clarified that. And I think that's helpful for us. The other thing is, you said, I think the key, you mentioned about the history of why the gravel wetlands is in there. And you want to repeat what Jason said about the gravel wetlands and our decision?
That he would feel that a company like Biohabitats, which is stronger, I would say stronger, but they come from an engineering perspective. And I actually looked at what they proposed in their proposal. I mean, it really is a very sophisticated gravel wetland that they, proposed to put in, but that would likely be more their, an advantage to work with a company like Biohabitats to do that. That's where you need that sort of creative solution.
But black and white, what he said is that if you're not going to do the gravel wetlands, then he would recommend SMI.
Yeah.
And Jason, I don't know if he's still here. I hate that he's putting these words in his mouth if he's not, but that's.
I can't see if he is or not. I don't.
Okay, so that was very helpful. Okay.
All right, so we've spent a lot of time sharing a lot of information here, and I think we've gotten a lot of good information. The plan is to cogitate on this for another month and come back and have a vote next month.
So what's going to happen between now and then that's going to change? Well, I mean, just recommendations, or what? Why don't we have enough?
Well, one thing is, I know that the committee has not gotten the references for the contractors, so it will give them time to get the references, and it will give town councilors time to parse through any additional questions they have or get any additional information.
All right, can we do a straw vote, or is it, what does everybody else think?
I have a question. Does that give us enough time to commit the funds? When is the?
Yes, because they have to be committed by December.
Let me comment to that, Rob. So yeah, that the way I see this going is we're going to need to sign a contract with someone. And because of the nature of the design build, we're probably going to want to make sure that it is, we spend our money in a way that does get us to our goals, which we will have decided to a certain extent in choosing which contractor, but we won't fully decide until we see the 30% design, as Jason is calling it. So I think we have to negotiate the contract. I've allowed a month for that. So if we make a decision it's October 14th, by the way, it's the latest day we can have the meeting in the month. But in a month, we will be able to hash through the details of the contract. That gives us plenty of time to sign it. So I don't think we have a time issue there, but I do think it will take, it's not something we're going to just write the contract in a few days and sign it, because I think we're going to have to be a little bit more cagey and specific with this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely will need, I think, outside counsel. I mean, this is just too big of a contract. Yes. And certainly Soltez as owner's engineer.
Exactly.
Need their substantive feed.
That's what I think.
All right, are we done with this for this evening?
Well, I wanted a straw vote.
Okay.
But I don't need to have it if the council would is uncomfortable, which is fine. I mean, it's not going to change anything, I guess, right? So we'll just vote next month. Is that what we're going to do? Is everybody okay with that? John would be happy with that.
I am okay with that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. Now on to the conservation meadow. So as you know, there was a plan put forward by our ad hoc meadow committee to cut some trees, some of the red cedars in the meadow. And I think we were all pretty impressed with the plan and how it was going to go. But then we heard from other residents that they are really not that fond of that plan. And so that really gave some of us some pause. We really want to make sure we're doing the right thing on this. And so let's make sure we consider all of the points of view. I think we're not going to decide this tonight. And my idea is really to have like a group go out for a walk on the meadow and, touch it and feel it and get a better understanding of what it is we're talking about, not just from the graphic. So I know Deb wanted to say something tonight. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure, Barbara, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I just want to explain, 10 of us wrote a letter and submitted it to the mayor and town council last week. This is 10 of us who are and have been regular users of the meadow for quite some time. We were expressing our serious concerns about the proposal submitted by the Ad Hoc Meadows Committee in August at the town council meeting to remove 75 mature native red cedars in the meadow. In their presentation, the Meadows Committee cited the 2013 Operation and Use Plan and stated that when the Conservation Park was created, the Operation and Use Plan specified that it was to be maintained as a meadow, but that hasn't been happening, and that one of the Ad Hoc Committee's purposes is to reach out to Montgomery Parks about restoring the meadow. What the Ad Hoc Meadows Committee did not explain is what a meadow is or what it even means to restore a meadow. In our letter to the mayor and town council, we made the points that the committee's proposal is contrary to the 2013 Operation and Use Plan, that one of the Operation and Use Plan stated objectives was to create areas within the meadow with woody, early successional vegetation to provide wildlife refuges, and that its recommendation for the initial 5-year management of the meadow habitat was to keep all existing native shrubs and trees that are taller than the deer browse limit, which is approximately 4 to 5 feet, to provide a variety of habitats within the early succession meadow for birds and wildlife, including the cedars. Our letter also said that the proposal was based on an unsupported view that the meadow is not a meadow, that the proposal would have a profound effect on wildlife that depends on the cedars, and that if gone through, it would take years to remediate, and that the proposal is not supported by the justifications given, which were that cedars spread aggressively and host rust disease, because there is no evidence that either exists in the meadow. The committee submitted a letter last night and has now come back and now says that the issue with the 2013 Operation Use Plan is that Montgomery Parks in 2013 did not follow it. It did not mow the cedars that should have been mowed. That is, the cedars that were 5 feet or shorter. Maybe now that's what the Meadow Committee means when they say they want to restore the meadow. I think what underlies the concerns that we have raised is that, in our view, there seems to be a lack of transparency about the reasons for removing the cedars in the first place, in the process behind the proposal to remove the cedars. And we are confused by what the Meadows Committee means exactly when they say they want to restore the meadow. If the Meadows Committee means that by restoring the meadow, they want removed those original cedars that Montgomery Parks was supposed to remove in 2013 but didn't, why haven't we, and I mean that royally, why hasn't anyone from either the prior Fields Committee raised this issue, or why have we waited 11 years to even raise this issue? Why didn't we address the issue at the time? What's different now that all of a sudden it's become an issue? The Meadows Committee says in their letter too that we should rely on the experts in the parks. Well, why didn't the experts raise this issue 11 years ago? The trees that the ad hoc committee wants to remove are now mature trees. There are consequences to removing them, consequences that can't be remediated. The ad hoc committee's letter yesterday said that their current recommendation is to approve phase 1 of their proposal, which is the removal of 37 trees, and not phases 1 and 2, which is the removal of 75 trees, which was their original proposal. Does that mean that phase 2 is entirely off the table and the Meadows Committee will not be raising it sometime in the future? Or will phase 2 be on the table at a later date? As for the proposal itself, we keep hearing that it's a proposal from Montgomery Parks, but what prompted the proposal? Did Montgomery Parks come up with a proposal to remove the cedars independently on their own? Or were they tasked by the Meadows Committee to come up with a proposal? If I can just finish, because I don't have much more.
Yeah, I mean, you should
and
finish,
then
please.
How were these 75? I'm sorry?
Yeah, can you please wrap it up? Yeah,
Okay.
I think our agenda said that they were limited to 3 minutes, but I haven't been keeping track.
Okay. Well, thanks. I think I agree. Actually, ultimately, I think it's more, instead of engaging in a back and forth, I absolutely agree with you, Barbara. I think it just makes sense to do a meadow walk with the town council, with the mayor, I think with the 10 of us, with the Meadows Committee. And I think it might be a good idea to have Ryan Colleton, who is, I guess, on Montgomery Parks, to be on that walk as well. I think there's just a lot of questions that we have that we would like addressed. And I think it just makes more sense for all of us to be more informed. That's all I have for now.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, there are different points of view. We're not going to decide this tonight. Bruce, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm all in favor.
I'm just, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I don't really want to be back and forth point by
No,
point.
I don't either.
I think we get the general gist of both sides, and we're open, as a town council, we're open to both of your views. So know that going forward.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'm, there is no rush to make a decision tonight. I also agree. I think the proposal to have a walking meeting in the meadow is a great way to do it. I can see if Ryan can make that meeting. He's come out and met with us several times already. I can't answer the question about why things weren't done 10 years ago. I don't think anybody knows, or at least nobody who's talked to me knows why things weren't done 10 years ago. And we never asked town council to approve removing 75 trees. 37 trees of the cedars. That will still leave a lot of cedars and other trees. It will leave clusters of trees. But we don't need to go into all that now. I think it's a good suggestion to just take it into the meadow and have the conversation there.
So I would like to know who wants to set up that meeting.
Well, I have very limited availability for the next month. I'm mainly going to be out of the country, so I'm available any day next week. I'm available the Monday and Tuesday the week after that. I don't know what Ryan's availability is,
Right,
but I
right.
can ask.
Right. Why don't you find out his availability? I'm thinking we need to do like a doodle poll or something, because
Yeah.
we're talking about a lot of people here and we want to get the highest number, and just sending emails back and forth is not the way to do it. But maybe if you could find the dates that Ryan is available and the dates you are available, and Deb too, maybe send those to me and I will do a doodle poll and we'll just find the best date, to get the most people. Because, we really do want to be responsive and responsible on this, we
Some
don't
of us-
rush it.
Oh, sorry, Barbara, for interrupting. Some of us still work for a living during the day. If we could do this in the early evening, I think that might be better for many of us, if that's possible.
Okay, well, send me.
I'll see what Ryan can do.
Yeah.
It's if you want Ryan, I don't know if we can get him on an evening, but we can try.
Yeah, okay. We'll start with that and we'll see what we can do. Okay.
Can I just make a 30-second comment / observation? I would really urge everyone in town, before you start making accusations about ulterior motives and lack of transparency, just assume that your fellow neighbors are acting in good faith until proven otherwise. So I understand there are different points of view on this, but I really was troubled by the tone of the letter that you read, Deb, not the content, but the tone. It just had sort of accusations of bad faith by the members of the Meadows Committee that seem kind of extraordinary to me. So if there's some basis for that, like, okay, that sounds terrible, but maybe they just have different perspectives and they're not acting in bad faith. I think that happens a lot in town. We feel strongly about things and we end up, I don't know, demonizing or vilifying people who disagree with us. I'd urge a little bit of ability.
I hear you, Rob, and I hear you, Rob. I think what sort of is frustrating for us is we've heard different rationales, and we're just not quite. We just don't understand. It keeps moving, and I think had we heard the letter that they submitted last night, I think we would have had a different understanding, perhaps.
Okay, so we'll get together and we'll try to talk about it more face to face and hopefully come to an agreement that most of us at least feel satisfied with. All right, so get your dates to me and I'll take the initiative to see if we can set up that meeting. Okay, so next item on the agenda is the proposal for year 2 of the municipal leaf composting pilot. So Kitty, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. About a year ago, the Sustainability Committee in town brought a proposal to the town council to establish leaf compost bins on town property and test how that would work, the size of the pile, where we would put them, how we would manage it, and whether we would get any compost out of it. The year's done and we have some results I want to talk about tonight and give you our evaluation and give you proposal for year 2 of the leaf composting pilot. The conclusion of the committee was that the process of collecting the leaves, mulching them, delivering them went quite well. We had full cooperation from the contractor in town, landscaper, delivered mulched leaves whenever we needed. They brought big wagons up and dumped them in the bins for us. We put up a double bin at the side of the drive up by the maintenance building. After talking over different sites, we found what we thought would be a dry spot. And we took two of the county free bins and put it together to make a big bin. And we had a smaller bin as well. And we filled it with all the leaves, and we added coffee grounds to get the nutrients in. We watered it because we had the water from the maintenance building right there. That worked well. What we saw was that we had no interference. Nobody tampered with. We worried, were people going to throw things in there, or will we have any rodents? We had no issues at all. Nobody tampered with it. We had people ask us what we were doing there and give us good opportunity to explain what we were trying to do. We had nobody threw any food in or anything that caused any problem. And just a small group of us maintained it. Where maintenance basically was adding more leaves as it sank down a little bit, and turning the pile and watering it. We took measurements. We had a log book, and we kept all our numbers in it. We measured how what the temperature was. We topped out, I think 140 degrees was the best we hit, which we thought was darn good. We estimated that we got 2,500 pounds of shredded leaves. Big guess. We added in about 400 pounds of used coffee grounds that mainly were donations from the Safeway Starbucks in Kings Farm. And some people in town gave us some coffee grounds as well. And we think we got about 4 cubic yards of compost out of it. We learned a lot as we did this. We found out that the open way of doing a windrow didn't work very well. We didn't get the temperature high enough. We concluded that the double bin gave us the volume we needed and worked a lot better than a single bin. We experimented with adding pipes to get air to go through it. We experimented with putting a tarp over it to see if we could keep the moisture and lift the temperature, and that did nothing. So we don't think that helped. That was something that didn't work, but we learned a lot. We learned how to build it by layers. It worked best when we put a layer of the mulched shredded leaves in, and then watered it, and then added the coffee grounds, and repeat. So our conclusion was that it was a success. We would like to build on this. We would like to go into another year of, we'll continue to call it a pilot, because every time we do something a little different, we learn something else, and we want to continue that. So we're going to ask the council we've got a request here for three suggestions for carrying this into the next year. We worked with the Forestry and Beautification Committee to get their input, and I have 3 things we want to ask. The first was to continue the double bin setup that we already have at the maintenance building, and our committee would continue to maintain that, monitor the site. The second would be we're going to suggest creating what we call a private-public set of private-public test sites. That is, residents will have some bins, the double bins on their property, but we'll use the town leaves. Our committee views these leaves as a resource for the town. We don't want the leaves taken out of town. They are an important resource to improve our soil, the quality of the soil, and the maintenance of the water in our soil. So we don't want to give them away. We want to use them here. So we've got several people have volunteered to let us put up on their property a bin, and then we'll ask the landscaper to dump the mulch leaves in there, and our committee will help monitor the sites. And if they run into trouble, need some help stirring it or watering or whatever, we'll try to help with that. And the third request is we would like to cut a little niche out of the bamboo forest by the maintenance and tuck a double bin in there as well, and see how that works when it's surrounded by the bamboo. Would put a little floor in there of the bamboo that's cut down, and these three things together would expand our project probably about 3 times the size of what we had and give us a lot more compost. The compost that we got out from the first year has been used extensively in the town garden and around the town hall to improve the soil up there. And the plan is to use it throughout town for other trees that could benefit from some better mulch around them. So it's all going to go back into the community. If we can expand it like this and have more mulch next year, more compost next year, we'll be able to offer it to town for their own residents in their own yards as well. So that's our proposal for year 2.
Hey, Kitty, I have a question.
Sure.
From a maintenance perspective. So RJ was the one that provided the leaves, right?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah, so I just have a question as far as how do they get, I know how they can pick the leaves up. How do they get the leaves do they put the leaves in the bin, or do they dump them by the bin and you guys put them in?
It was a combination. They had some sort of equipment, and we had 3 sides built, and we kept it open on one side. They backed the thing up and dumped it in. And then they just dumped a pile for us to try a windrow. I mean, just an open pile that wasn't surrounded by any leaves. So that was, yeah.
Good.
But we also topped up. I mean, they dumped next to it, and we finished building the piles just using pitchforks. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that presentation. That was a lot of information and really helpful. So, so there's a request here. Do I have a motion to approve this request?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Peter, second.
I'll second it, Eva.
Eva, keeping it with the theme. Any discussion?
I'm just curious, like with Georgette, make Georgette speak. The bamboo, which is there any? That's the only thing I can see that not me, but I don't know if anybody has any concerns about going into that sacred bamboo forest. Is that something, Georgette, that would be of concern to F&B?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think it would provide a very suitable screen, and actually F&B would find it interesting to have more information about exactly what would keep bamboo from growing, because we do have other areas in town where we have bamboo on town property where we really would like not to have it. So more information in that respect would be good too.
So you're going to require composting at all the bamboo sites? Is that when it works, when it retards the bamboo?
Anything that, if honestly, if we could figure out if it actually did retard the bamboo, I'd give it serious consideration.
No. So my question though about the proposal with the bamboo is, supposing it's successful, what would what's the follow-on action?
You're asking Kitty?
Anyone? I mean, you want to put
we just want to see if it'll work this year.
Yeah, I think our thinking, John, is just to gradually scale this up. One reason for suggesting the public-private partnership is that we it's hard to find a big location in town where we could do something like this. Secondly, everybody's house has a garden hose, so the watering is easier. So there's some places in town that would be very difficult to get water to. So around the maintenance shed, we can get water to, and around our houses, we can get water to. And so that's the thinking. If we triple what we did this year and it works, then we'll figure out if we can triple it again.
We had no idea, a year ago, we had no idea we would suggest these things this year.
Right.
It hadn't crossed our mind yet about the bamboo or a public-private thing, so I would expect a year from now, maybe something else will develop that we'll want to suggest.
All right. All right, any other questions? Can we go for a vote? All in favor? Okay, opposed? Nobody? Okay, passes. All right.
We finally
great.
passed something
Approved.
tonight. Congratulations, Barbara.
Yay!
You're batting 333. Not bad.
Okay.
Put me
All
down
right.
in favor, sorry.
Okay, yeah, that was unanimous in favor. Okay. So other business. Okay, town council reports. This is a fun one. The sustainability is discussing a chicken keeping ordinance. I gather that at the moment we are not allowed to have chickens at our homes, and somebody thinks that we should. And so we'll see how that discussion goes. Again, with the sustainability committee, they report that the charger usage for the electric cars went up this month, and that saved 90 gallons of fuel. The Emergency Preparedness and Safety Committee is recruiting and re-energizing. So if anybody's interested in a committee to join, that's a really good one. There's some serious issues that need to be looked at to make sure that we stay safe in town. So please look at that. The Planning Commission is considering an ordinance changes for the commercial corner. As you probably, most people know, the landlord wants to renovate and add and do some wonderful things there. So we have to go through that process. So very good. Okay, so next we're on to the approval of the August minutes, which I will put up. But I'm sure everybody has read them, right?
Yes.
Okay, this is going to take me a second. Sorry.
Well, you do that. I'll make the motion to approve.
Yes,
the minutes.
thank you.
I'll second Mary.
Okay, so do you need to look at it? Because of course you've all read them before, and
I'm ready
so
to vote.
maybe we don't need to put it up. Okay, let's vote. All in favor? Okay, oppose? Nobody? Okay, that passes. Great. All right, then the next meeting is on October 14th at 7:30, and you'll be back to your regular mayor running the meeting. That will be fun. Okay, so any last minute comments? Anything we didn't?
No, it's a
cover?
posting
Very
this
good.
meeting.
Okay. We
Thank
learned
you,
more,
Barbara.
more about stormwater management than we thought we ever would, but there's more to learn still. So, all right, thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Take care.
Good night.